That gets you a cheer every single time. We also have an amazing brother-sister duo here today whose album, as you can see to my side, Living Room, is out and available everywhere right now. What a Friday it is. And like magic, they're joining us right now. So let's give a big, warm, build welcome to Lawrence.
Thank you for having us.
Hi.
How are you guys?
Pretty good.
Pretty good, right?
Yeah.
The
Pretty
album's
crazy
out.
day, yeah.
Yeah, it's a pretty good Friday, or a chicken finger Friday, as one may call it.
Friday.
Now, I love this shirt. Let's start right there, because I was watching an interview with you from like Bonnaroo like 2 years ago, and you showed up today, and I was like, dude, this guy's got one shirt. But it must have been a Friday. So tell the story behind this shirt.
I have like 3 shirts, but this is one of them. Yeah, I mean, all of us in the band, or almost all of us in the band, went to college together. And at that school, at the dining hall, there was a kind of tradition of chicken fingers every Friday. And my college roommate made these shirts, just like handmade them, sold them to our friends, whatever. And I bought this one thinking like, this is a ridiculous color. I'll probably never end up wearing this. I started wearing it when we had shows on Fridays, and at first, people that went to the same college as us were like, oh my God, that's so cool. But then it just became a thing where like anyone, whether they understood what it was from or not, it just became like a thing where now I wear this shirt every time we have a show on a Friday. And like we've had fans complain when they come to like a Friday show if I'm not wearing it. They're like, dude, where's the Chicken Finger Friday shirt?
Yeah.
So now it's just it's in the canon.
I love it. I'm impressed by the commitment. I mean, that's years and years of Friday shows you're rocking.
Of neon green, and I mean, I'm colorblind, but I've been told
you're right, it's green.
I've been told that these are interesting colors.
Those are great, man. It gets my attention. Now, Gracie, I should have commended you at the open on this. You're playing the third of 3 sold-out New York City shows.
That's correct.
So a round of applause for that, right off the top.
Thank you.
What does that feel like, though? Because you guys are from right here on the Upper West Side. You grew up here, born and raised. Just to have that love from the hometown crowd, that's incredible.
It's honestly pretty wild. Like, we grew up going to these venues or trying to get into these venues, really. I'm still trying to get into these venues. But yeah, no, it's totally crazy. We go in and we, remember seeing people up there and being like, I wonder if we'll ever play on that stage. And now we have and we are, and it's really, really cool.
Yeah. And it's been really special this week being able to play 3 sold-out shows at 3 different venues, 3 very different shows with different themes, different set lists, and just like being able to have even a lot of the same fans come out night to night and just like celebrate the album in a totally different kind of style and setting.
Yeah. How do you guys view the live shows? Because I know just, artistically or conceptually, artists look at it differently. Some look at it as a meetup amongst friends. Some look at it as maybe just a pure performance. How do you guys look at it?
Well, that's kind of what was cool about this week specifically is like, I think for us, a live performance has to be live. Like, that's the most important thing, I think. And that gets lost a lot. I think a lot of artists don't actually play live.
Or not completely live.
Or not completely live.
Aided by tracks or whatever.
So I guess in a general sense, like, our main goal is to always play like a really dope live show. All of us bringing our best musicianship to the table. And cool arrangements and really showing the songs in a cool way. And what's interesting about this week is, as Clyde was saying, like, we had 3 nights, so we got to change up the vibe of each of the shows. So we were able to approach each night very differently. So like the first night of album release week was super intimate and acoustic. So we played all the songs down on the album, but like basically just the 2 of us and then some of the guys in the band coming in and out for a song. And then the second night was like we played a lot of throwback songs off of our first record. And then the third night, tonight, we're gonna play like a big live show, like everyone on stage doing the whole thing.
And in terms of like the vibe of the night, as you were saying, like, because it's a hard line to draw. We want everyone dancing, hanging out, almost treating it like it's a party or a hangout with their friends, like an event they want to go to. We also want it to feel like a legitimate like musical experience. Yeah. I think that we really fall smack in the middle of that spectrum where some bands, it's like you come, you sit down, you are glued to the music, and then some people, when they're playing shows, it's like they're just trying to throw a party, and we're sort of somewhere in the middle. And it's funny because when we used to play like parties all the time, whether it was in college or shortly after, we were trying to turn those parties into like as legitimate of a party concert as you could make it. And then now we find ourselves in like the opposite position where we're playing at these really awesome, super esteemed, legitimate venues, and we're basically like trying to turn it into like the college party version of that.
Yeah, it's like all in reverse now. It's so
Yeah,
fun.
exactly.
Listening to the record, it sounds like a record that would translate incredibly well to the live environment. I'm curious, when you guys are making music like in the studio, when you're conceptualizing this record, is that where the thought process starts? Like, okay, can we play this live? How would this sound live? Or what is that sort of that starting point for you guys?
I think that we're definitely never restricted by what the live set could be. I mean, there's 8 people on stage, so we obviously can make a really big sound, but I think that, you know, even on our record, we're using instruments and creating instruments that are pretty impossible to be recreated live. So I think that for us, like the live show is sort of comes after, and we have a really good time being creative and like figuring out how to translate this like very interesting thing we've created in the recording studio and make it part of the live show.
Hopefully interesting.
Hopefully interesting, yeah.
But yeah, I think that this album is different for us than the last one because of what Gracie just said. Actually, our previous work was kind of road tested, played live for months or even years before we had the opportunity to go in and record it. So our vision of what the songs were was kind of more shaped by the live music process. And we worked with an amazing producer on our last album, Eric Krasno, who kind of pushed us out of our comfort zone to make sure that we weren't too wed to those live arrangements. But this album was kind of Living Room was the first time that we actually went into the studio with a conscious effort to, you know, not think too much about the live before we went in and make an album that was just like the best version of itself in the studio, and just like worry about how we can take 8 great musicians and recreate it live after the fact.
Right. Speaking of Living Room, it's sort of obviously aesthetically a very vintage vibe, and I know you guys are big fans of throwback music like Stevie Wonder and Paul McCartney. Why do you think that is? Like, why do you gravitate towards more that style than say something like a contemporary peer per se?
I think that like a lot of that older music from the 60s and the 70s represents a slightly different creative process than what you hear now. There's a lot of great music right now. Like, I don't want to be one of those people bashing current music, but I think that there's definitely an extent to which like the kinds of songs that were being written were a little bit more like honest in some ways, and also a little bit more like the way the music's made these days. A lot of it's about loops and sounds, and all of that's like really awesome, and we try to take as much inspiration as we can from that. But like true songwriting where the song feels like it was written at a piano or with a guitar in someone's hand rather than at a laptop, that kind of songwriting is something that feels more present in the era of Stevie Wonder or the Beatles or Randy Newman or Carole King or whoever it may be.
Right. I mean, maybe an analogy to make is if you were to think of a song as a story, I feel like those people all took their time to tell the story, and that, you know, there were highs and lows, and now it feels like the market may just want you to spit it out as quickly as possible.
I think also, I mean,
Totally.
I think storytelling, whether it's fast or slow, like as long as it's telling a story, is probably the most important thing.
Right.
And I think often, you know, even maybe as a result of people prioritizing, you know, quickly getting to the hook or something, we're losing a little bit of that story and dynamic.
Yeah.
Dynamics.
Dynamic,
That's the word.
yeah.
That's the key word.
Well, let's talk about some of the stories you tell on this record. I want to talk about Make a Move, a great song off of it. And that comes actually from some stories of your personal life, Gracie.
What? Yeah. Yeah, totally. I am 21 and a girl, and yeah, I feel like this conversation started when I was in high school and people were just starting to like ask people out. And I remember talking to a bunch of girls, and everyone was like, all of the girls were really nervous to ask guys out, not because they feared rejection, but because they were nervous that like they'd be viewed as really aggressive or manly, and that as a result, that would be super unattractive, which was like a really bizarre confusing concept to me, but one that was affecting me. And I felt like if I ever asked a guy out, it would be like, whoa, like you're so into me, which I wasn't. So yeah, I think that this song was sort of, it's called Make a Move because it's sort of a declaration of like, girls or anyone who identifies as a girl should be allowed to make a move and have it signify just that they're empowered and that they're allowed to ask someone out.
Yeah, and us shy guys are like, please make a move.
We've actually gotten a lot of guys on Twitter being like, yes, like anyone that wants to ask me out, go for it. That's been like a common response.
Another song that I do love off the record I wanted to ask you guys about is Who You Are.
Whoever you are.
Whoever you are, I'm sorry, whoever you are. There's something in, if this is not where you guys were coming from, please, by no means, don't judge me, but there's something like 90s ballad Disney-esque about it. Like, I almost feel like it could be like the title track from like a 90s Disney movie.
It's so funny. We actually we wrote that song in our living room and played it for our dad, and the first thing he said was like, God, like if they still use songs as like the theme songs for TV shows, like this should be that.
Yes,
and
go Dad.
We took that as a compliment, which hopefully it was. But yeah, that song definitely from the melody and the chords and just the whole vibe that it creates definitely has that kind of like super warm, happy Disney feel. And we tried to kind of rub up against that or just contrast that with like lyrics that feel a little bit more wistful or melancholy. It's a song about, there's so many love songs about the idea that, you know, oh, I can't wait to find the person that I'm supposed to be with, or there's so many lyrics about, oh, I'm so upset that I haven't found them, or I'm so happy that I have. This is a song about what if when you find that person that you're supposed to be with, if you believe in that kind of thing, that what if you don't even recognize that that's who they are, whoever they are, and like what if you don't have it within you, or you don't have the perspective in that moment to kind of step up to the plate and be the best version of yourself or make it work or whatever it is.
Right, and I think it's a warranted question because you think about, you know, modern times, not to sound like a grandpa, right? But like, there's so much noise in our world, whether it's a dating app or whether it's just like the information overload we all go through every day, that, you know, if that, you know, one and only does present itself, like, will we recognize it? Or will they just get grouped into everything else that we have to, you know, interpret every day?
Totally, yeah. I mean, it's just like the distractions of the external world or like things going on in your own life or mind.
Totally. I mean, I think oh, I'm sorry, were you going to say something?
No, I was going to say that, and it's cool because like, you know, the two of us have our own lives and experiences, and then, you know, we're able to kind of like just vent about them to each other and kind of find a common theme in like what, you know, not to be too personal, Clyde is experiencing in his social life and I'm experiencing in mine. And like, that's sort of like the thesis of the song. And then we each, on that song specifically, it's a good example, like we each have a verse. So in each of our verses, it's sort of like representing our point of view, our experience on this topic.
Yeah. Do you guys always get along? Like growing up?
Yeah.
Because no, I mean, it's like
Mostly,
amazing.
yeah.
I feel like I know so many siblings that are just like at each other's necks all the time. You know what I mean?
That's like the most common question that we get from fans, like after shows or just casually. And it's like almost turns into this weird form of like therapy where they're like, how do you do? I hate my brother. Or I haven't spoken to my siblings in years. And we're like, I'm sorry about that. Yeah. Yeah, we've mostly always got, our family is super tight knit and we've really always bonded over storytelling and music. Almost everyone in our family is like, that's kind of what they do. And
not necessarily in music, but like in art in general.
Yeah.
So I think like maybe when we were kids, we fought sometimes the way siblings do, but we always really like had music and like shared passions that we worked really well together on.
Yeah.
I think I used to bite Clyde.
Yeah.
But that was like,
We're hoping that
will.
we're hoping that'll end soon.
Yeah.
Like 2012, 2013.
Yeah, something like that.
Any day now.
We need to get you two in a room with the Gallagher brothers, and I think we could finally get like an Oasis reunion.
Right.
I think you guys could teach them a thing or two.
It's funny. There's so many great sibling bands, like between Oasis and the Kinks, and like there's so many. And they always end these terrible ways where everybody ends up hating each other.
Yeah. Well, fingers
Fingers crossed.
yeah,
literally.
Me too.
Yeah.
Can we all just
Good-
cross
good
our
for
fingers right now?
Let's enjoy it while we can.
That's so funny. We're going to turn it over to the audience in just a few moments. And of course, the instruments are up on stage for good reason. You guys are going to be nice enough to do almost like a warm-up gig, I should say, before the show tonight. But I did want to talk about touring because you are going to be on the road really till the holidays this year. So where are you going and what are you expecting?
We're going everywhere, it feels like. We're doing a whole US tour for the next few weeks until the end of October, and then
And Canada.
and Canada.
Don't forget about Canada.
And then we're going to Europe. We're doing a Euro tour, which is sort of our first official Europe tour.
Wow.
And then we're coming back to the US for like a few weeks to tour the
Nice.
Northeast.
Very cool. Busy end of the year, and we've got some amazing questions to end our little episode of Build It here today. The first will come from right here.
Hello. Thank y'all for being here today. So technology has really made it easy for a lot of people to make music, which is good because they can express themselves, but it also means that there's like an insane amount, created and uploaded every day. So my question is just, how do you guys find your own sound and find an audience when like there's so much going on kind of stuff?
That's a great question. I mean, I think that there's some really good things that technology has brought to music and then some less good ones. The one that I mentioned earlier about it promoting a certain kind of, in my opinion, less creative songwriting is a negative. And a positive is what you're saying, the ability for anybody to not only make music, but to share it with everyone in a way that decades ago only a few record labels had the power to do. I don't think that we've ever really taken that too much into consideration in finding our sound, especially because our sound was always so specific. Like if you were to just start with, we are a brother-sister band that's trying to sound like, Chicago and Earth, Wind and Fire and Stevie Wonder, that already limits the amount of people that are gonna sound too much like this. So we've never really had to feel like we are competing with this mountain of people. I just think it's cool that everyone's able to kind of put it out there and have their chance to be seen. But I don't know.
I think the question of finding your sound is sort of to me, separate from the world of technology almost. That in itself is really difficult. I think as Clyde is saying, we've always had sort of an instinct for what our sound was, but being songwriters, you have the versatility and ability to kind of try out different vibes, and then sometimes that's a good thing, and sometimes that's really distracting because you're like, maybe I could write only musical theater or something, and then you're like, wait, that's not what I'm trying to do. So I think that that's just a whole other process, and hopefully after just trying and trying and trying, you kind of hone in on a sound of what you feel most comfortable in.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for the question, man. We have time for one more, and it'll come from over here.
Hi, so thanks for coming. I love your song, Make a Move, and I'm wondering if you can share a story of maybe a funny story of you making a move or someone making a move.
Oh, God.
Great follow-up.
Yeah, well, it's just embarrassing. Well, actually, a very concrete example of this. I'm just going to throw shade at a bunch of people who I will not name. This is actually in high school, and this isn't specifically what the song is about, but it's sort of an example. I had, a minor crush on someone and felt I should, text this person and just be like, hey, you want to hang out or whatever? And I did that, and then this other person's friend, the guy's friend, came up to me and was like, hey, look, we know you're really into him, but it's he's down if it's chill, but if it's not chill, that's way too much. I'm like, do you think I want to marry him? I had texted him you up. I'm not trying to marry this guy. So I guess that's a concrete and an embarrassing example, but the moral of that story is that's just where we are. I think, as like a feminist, and there are so many girls that I know that are feminists, like this is an issue that's still pervasive and like kind of quirky and random, but I think it's true. And I think that just the expectation is that if a girl's gonna ask a guy out, it's like more weighted and it means more, but I don't think it should have to. I think we're all kind of playing the same game, so we should expect the same things from each other. Thank you.
I was just gonna add that there's another song on the album called "Almost Grown." That's another song that Gracie kind of wrote most of and speaks to a lot of like other issues that you feel like you had socially in high school. And I just personally, like as a fan of Gracie's, love how those two songs kind of tell a cohesive story with each other. About just like the ways that people act towards each other and how those things are unfair, especially at a certain time in your life as you're coming of age. So I think if you're a big fan of that song, definitely like listen to Almost Grown and think about the full picture that those two paint, because it's cool.
Totally. And
Thanks,
then
Clyde.
and then just DM whoever you want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's an important message and it's a great one. And the record overall is really tremendous, guys. So congratulations on the success of tour and, of course, the early success of this one being out here today. I'm going to get out of your way so you guys can do your thing that you do best. But one final time, guys, for Lawrence.
Thank you.
Thank you guys.